Today is a what I read so far in April because I've read 22 books and we're only midway through the month. So I don't want to wait for an end of the month wrap up. And I don't know if it's because of COVID and being trapped in the house or if it is that I'm listening to a lot of audiobooks at triple speed, but I am pretty much just always reading. I should probably be doing some work, but some of these books are so good, I just can't put them down. So let's talk about the 22 books that I read so far in April and do a mid-month book haul wrap up. Hi everyone, I'm Lisa, author of the Frosted Misfortunes Cozy Mystery Series, starting my own little kitty cat, Lucky. So if you like talking all about cozy mysteries, books, movies, TV shows, and watching a couple kitty cat videos here and there, then make sure to hit the subscribe button. I post new videos every Tuesday or just extra videos like this because I just can't stop making videos. So let's talk today about all the books that I read so far in April. And honestly, ever since I started tracking everything in Goodreads, it has exponentially increased my reading speed, capacity, ability. Also using audiobooks, which honestly, I can't even tell you like how much I love audiobooks. It makes me feel more efficient, like whether I'm brushing my hair, if I am doing laundry, or if I'm walking to my car. It just makes me feel like I'm doing more stuff because I'm getting things done because I want to read more books. And yeah, so I'm basically just saying that I like reading, which is probably why you're here, because you like reading too. So let's break down all the books that I read this month. So the first one is I finished the Hex Files series by Gina LaManna, and this was about a detective who is a witch, but she's able to see the remnants of magic. So whenever somebody uses magic, she can tell what spells were cast and who cast them sometimes and whether or not they were legal or illegal spells, right? So this is the 6th borough of Manhattan, which is this magical borough of just people who are magical, just living in this secret place. So she is a detective there, and she gets put on all different cases because she can see the residuals. That's what it's called. Anyway, so it had a really great overarching theme on the Hex Files, which are a curse, and she's in the Hex Files along with 5 other people, and only these 5 people can help prevent the curse. So pretty much the first one started out as like simple mysteries, but like the last 3 books, 5, 6, and 7, were basically just dealing with the Hex Files. So I loved it. I gave all of them a 5, definite must read. And again, honestly, I would listen to the audiobook. I was saying this before, whoever the narrator is a like amazing, the best narration I've ever heard. The way she was able to change her voice, she sounded totally different for every single character. And she even had some great accents. All right, the other thing is I read 14 books in the Girl in the Box series. And to be fair, I think I did read book 1 already. Like as I was listening to it, I was like, oh, I've read this before. So not all of the books are audiobooks. And he says right on his site, it's Robert J. Crane, that his books on audio have not been very profitable. So that's why he just stopped bothering to do them. But the ones that were there were very helpful. And then I read the ones that were not in audio. I think it was just like 8, 9, and 10. But basically, it's about this girl who is a succubus, but it has a really cool background where she is descended from Hades. So it's all about the Roman gods, and only succubus and incubi are descended from Hades. And all of the other metahumans just hate them, can't stand them. They're afraid of them. They're considered like the strongest out of all of the different metahumans because they are able to eat souls, which means that instead of dying, if a succubus touches you, then, and it's not for a lot, I think it's like 20 seconds was the rule, then you actually get absorbed into their mind and you're just stuck there. And so it seems like a problem though at first, like she can talk to them, she can't really stop them from talking to them, but then she learns how to kind of like shut them up, I guess, in her head. And she has a mom who is a succubus too, but her mom put her in a box. So the box just means that she grew up her whole life. I think we start the story when she's 17, and whenever she was like misbehaving or did something wrong, her mom would stick her in like literally like a coffin box, like standing up. And so that's why it's called The Girl in the Box, right? And so she has this really tough upbringing, and her mom always teaches her how to fight, makes her wear gloves all the time, never lets her leave the house for like 17 years. And so because of that, she isn't very sociable, but she's super tough. tough, and she's like the perfect heroine for this book. I think it is his most popular series, and there are actually 45 books in this series and still growing. So, if you like it, you have plenty of books to keep reading. So they all read kind of like TV episodes, and he even has them on his site listed into what he calls seasons. So just like a TV episode, they're fast moving. The only thing is they're young adult. And so I've noticed sometimes with young adult, my biggest thing is there's just too much action. I don't know if that makes sense. So like there's not a lot of downtime or breathing room, and like every time someone's about to sleep, there's an attack, or someone's about to take in a shower, there's an attack, right? So it's I just find that just comical because that happens a lot in young adult. Now, the books were amazing. All of them were a 5. The only one that I did not give a 5 to was book 11 or 12, I think it was 12. And that was because it was told from her brother's POV. And it just, I don't know, they didn't really get into him as a character or his backstory or his personality. It mostly was just him going from one fight to sleeping with another girl to another fight to sleeping with another girl. So I didn't really feel that one. And maybe that's also because I don't read a lot of POV with boys as first person. So that could just be my personal preference or dispreference, or I guess you could call it. And so all the books from 1 to 10 are amazing. They deal with the whole history of the Roman gods and this other huge god that they're a sovereign that they're all trying to fight. And the background, I found myself wanting to read more about the background. Like it jumps back in time to 200 AD or BC when sovereign was first sort of coming into being. And so without giving away any spoilers, there's a big epic fight. And then after the epic fight, it is basically books 11 through 14 are just her doing, I don't want to say police procedurals, but she's in charge of a metahuman policing agency and she gets sent out on different assignments. And that's pretty much it. So I kind of lost interest. I kept on for 14 to the 14th book, but I really liked the huge lore of everything with her fighting. She was part of the Directorate, which is a U.S. government metahuman facility, and they're fighting the Alphas and also the Omega team. And then you also have this other group called Sentry, which is led by Sovereign, who is 100 different metahumans, and he only wants those 100 metahumans to exist. So that's like this big epic battle that is going on for the first 10 books. Now, the only complaint I have, and I pretty much have this with all male authors, is there's just a little too much focus on bodily fluids. Sometimes when guys are writing, right, like her bathroom activities, vomiting, what else? Her porn watching, right? So like those things are the only like downsides, and that's really minor. So you could probably just gloss over those parts. But overall, the whole series, everything I read, like I said, was a 5. I thought it was really felt like I obviously could not put them down because I just kept reading them one after another. So really great series. The other thing I read was the FBI Mobile Unit series. This is Costa and Quinn, and this is by one of my favorite thriller writers, Allison Brennan. This is the second in the Costa and Quinn series. And so Costa is an FBI agent in charge of the mobile unit, and Kara Quinn is an LA detective who has been taken off assignment because there's a hit out on her. She's normally an undercover cop, but her cover was blown. So now she's in this mobile unit that just kind of travels around. So they are investigating the death of a college girl who was looking into water tampering or water, something was wrong with the water, right? So maybe it was like a company doing a dumping spill off or something. So they're all undercover in this tiny town trying to figure out what's happening. I don't want to give anything away because I really think you should read it. It was like amazing, like a great weaving together of a thriller where you get to read the POV of the bad guys, even though you don't really know who they are, and her and Matt Costa. So it's, I don't want to say it's romantic suspense, but it was a little bit like that because they switch back and forth between Costa and Quinn's POV. But 100% loved it. Definitely gave it 5 stars. Now, I was so excited about thrillers that then I went on to read Melinda Leigh's thriller, which was Cross Your Heart. It was #1 in the Bree Taggart mysteries, and she is a detective from Philadelphia, I believe, Philadelphia, but her sister has been murdered, and so she goes to the small town to investigate and take care of her sister's kids. And it was honestly boring with the capital B. I don't even know what happened. Like, you go from this amazing thriller to this just, I can't can't even say it wasn't bad, right? It was just like, I didn't care about any of the characters. I really didn't feel like there was any suspense. And I didn't feel like anything was really happening. It was just kind of like, I forced myself to finish it, even though I really didn't want to. So definitely I gave it a 2. Not going to read any more in that series. The next one is Furbidden Fatalities by Deborah Blake. Now this is number 1 in the Catskill Pet Rescue Mysteries. And I thought I would love it because, you know, cats are cute, right? And so she starts out, she finds this cute cat and she tries to get rid of it and no one will take it at the shelters. And she's like, okay, well, I guess I'll keep it. And then in the meantime, they don't really tell you this, but she is a waitress who has won the lottery. And they don't specify the exact amount, but obviously she has plenty of money from winning the lottery. And she doesn't know what to do with it. She keeps waitressing at her job and she's still driving this rundown car that barely runs. And so she decides to buy this animal rescue center. And it's kind of quick how it happens. There's like no thought process. She just like buys it. And then the dog warden in town has given her a hard time. He's given the center a hard time. He's supposedly, you know, making these false charges against other animals. And because they've been accused of being dangerous, they're being ordered to be euthanized, right? So it's like really dark and ominous. And then he turns up dead. She finds the body and becomes the prime suspect because she was fighting with him in court. So fast forward through the rest of the book. I guess that my main problem was there were so many animals, you really couldn't get close to them, even though you like the idea of a rescue facility. And also, I don't know how they run, but like at night, she'd be like, let's have some popcorn and watch a movie. And I'm like, who's letting the dogs out at night? Like, do they only get to be let out from 9 to 5? And then because you're at home and you want to watch a movie, like nobody can go to the bathroom like at 9 o'clock? I don't know. I'm not sure about the logistics of running a rescue society like 24/7, but I feel like that was a little odd. So anyways, not a lot of focus on the rescue part. She did a lot of investigating. She ends up finding it out in the end. And honestly, it was one of those mysteries where like you never ever would have guessed it. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the Julie Ann Lindsay book that we just read for the Cozy Escape Book Club, where we were all like, huh? How did the murderer come out? So anyway, so I gave it a 3. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't good. And so it was just kind of like, okay, I won't be reading any more books in this series though. The next one is Paradise Valley Mysteries. So these mysteries were so amazing. These are by Deborah Burroughs. I read the first one, Scent of Lies, and I think these are more romantic suspense, even though it was only told from, I shouldn't say only, it was mostly told from the POV of the main character, who's Emily Parker. So she's a realtor and she decides to become a private investigator because her husband, Evan, was a private investigator. He actually got killed in his office. It's one of those unsolved mysteries. I think it's an overarching mystery for the whole series. But she ends up taking on his old client because she finds a phone number of a woman in one of his old jackets. And of course, you're like, oh my God, was he cheating on me? So she calls the woman. She's like, no, he wasn't cheating. I was actually his client. I think my husband is cheating on me. Will you take over the case for him? And so she takes over the case. But of course, then the husband ends up dead, the client's husband. And so her client is now on the hook looking like she murdered him. So she works with the local new detective to help solve this mystery. So her and the new local detective end up dating, which does seem like a huge conflict of interest, but they don't really talk about that. But for some reason, even though this was like, it didn't really make a lot of sense, I absolutely loved this series. I can't wait to read more books in this series. If you've seen the covers, they look exactly like the Shelby Nichols covers, which is a book about cheating psychic wife who like solves murders. But these have no magical elements in them, even though the colors look very similar. But I gave this one a 5. I loved it, and I'm going to definitely keep reading more in the series. And then the last book that I read was Agatha Christie's Harlequin tea set. Now, this was a short story, and I haven't read Agatha Christie in a while, and I actually didn't even know this story was around. But it was funny because this is obviously before DNA testing, and back then, I think people just didn't marry outside of your race. And if you did, it was like crazy. Like people are like, wow, that kid looks kind of like this. So it was a lot of stereotypical guessing at heritage and lineage and DNA just by looking at people like, oh, he kind of looks like his dad. You can tell he got his eyes from his mom, and his hair is very much like the guy size man. So this goes on for the whole, and I was like, why do they keep commenting on this? And I was like, oh, because this is before DNA testing, so you couldn't really prove anything back then. You could only get a blood test to like rule somebody out for sure. So anyways, don't want to ruin the mystery, but it is all about heredity and DNA and genes being passed down and trying to figure out whose parent is whose parent and who's lying. So I gave it a 5. I still think it was good, obviously based on the time that it was written. So those were the 22 books that I read for the month of, that's not true, for the first half of April. So I will do another what I read in April wrap up for the second half, because I think this one is already pretty long. Anyway, yeah, these are so long. I don't know why. I will try to, hopefully as time goes on, I will make these shorter. See, it's a good thing I split this up in 2, because otherwise this would be like the world's longest video. All right, I hope everyone's having a fabulous day. And remember to friend me on Goodreads. You can see exactly what I'm reading as I'm going. And I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.